do me a favor and just pretend like that was perfect? Hello, it's James Caldwell, the Pearland guitarist. Today I want to talk about this little piece by Francisco Tarrega. It's titled Studio de Campanelas su un tema della folia. Anyway, study of Campanelas on a theme from Folia by De Fassa. This is one of those technique builders that I like to practice and that I encourage my students to practice. I refer to a technique builder as any short piece that focuses on some fundamental technique of classical guitar playing, and this one has a couple. I like the pieces to be short so that you can practice them over and over and really drill and focus on the techniques that are presented. This piece is found in Pumping Nylon in the easy to early intermediate repertoire section. It's an excellent short study. It gets us out of first position, as most of it's played right here in the fifth position. A little bit is up here in eighth position. And back to fifth position. So we'll see that in a minute. One feature of this piece is that it forces you to play on your fingertips because we're playing fretted notes high up on the fretboard and open strings right next to those fretted notes. Right from the very beginning. You have to be on your tips all the way through this piece. There's always those open strings, at least the open E string, that we're kind of pedaling off of. There are some awkward left-hand fingerings in measure 4 and measure 5. It really forces you to position your hand so that you can access those notes. In measure 5, the pinky is our anchor to begin in. And that's always a challenge. This isn't going to be a note-by-note lesson. I want to focus on his checklist, especially the second checkpoint, where he says, this is Scott Tennant and his notes in Pumping Nylon, he says, hold the bass notes only for their written duration. Use either free left-hand fingers or P, the thumb, to stop the open bass strings. But he doesn't explicitly tell you how to achieve that, and that's what I want to focus on. In the first measure, we have an open D string. As our bass note, it's a half beat, so it's a 2-note count. And right here, we're going to play D on the third string with our third finger. That's when that bass note is supposed to stop. But if I don't do anything, the D is still ringing. The way I accomplish that is using my thumb on the right hand. What I do when I'm going for that D note on the third string is I lean the thumb back and I let the fleshy portion of it mute the D string. So I'm not sure how well you can see this. I'll try and get a different angle on it here. So simply kind of exaggerating it there a little bit. Leaning the thumb into the D string. That takes care of measure 1, which is also the same as measure 3. And later in the piece, it's also the same as measures 9 and 11. Piece is very short but very repetitive. In measure 2, it begins with the open 5th string A, and it's just a quarter note beat. So it should stop when we play the C sharp on the third string there. And if you don't do anything, it could still be ringing well beyond that measure. The way I mute that 5th string A is with the third finger on the left hand. And right when I go to play that C sharp on the third string, I just let this finger drop down and briefly touch the string. Then the third finger is going to come over to the 5th string A. Hear that? As opposed to just letting it ring. And you can just practice these motions over and over just by themselves. This is the first 2 beats of measure 2. It's a bit odd because anytime you place a finger down, you want to press it. And anytime you press a note with the left hand, you'll want to play it with the right hand, but that's not what we're doing here. So practice these first 2 measures individually. Until you get these techniques down. Moving on, measure 3, as I said, is the same as measure 1. Measure 4 is really just an awkward fingering for the left hand. We're not going to bar here. It's tempting to try and bar this, but we're playing that open E. If you were to play a bar here, you could get the E note right here on the 3rd string under your 2nd finger, but we're not doing that. We're pedaling off the open E. Now this first bass note is a C, and it's a half beat, so it doesn't need to stop until we play this A out here on the 4th string. You can simply just lift the 1st finger off and pivot around to get the 4th finger on that 4th string A. And that takes care of that bass note. In measure 5, similarly, we're starting with the 4th finger, the pinky, and that's always the weak finger that needs a little workout to make it stronger and more useful. And we can just lift it. It's also a half note. We can just lift it right before we play this C on the 3rd string. Measure 6 is the same as 4. Measure 7 doesn't require any special technique to stop the bass notes. It's doing this walk down. That was measure 7 and 8. It's a rather awkward fingering here though. 4, 3, 2, open E, move the 4th finger over, pivot around and get the 1 finger down. So we have this, or rather, this is where the bass is going there. Measure 8 is just interesting little pattern of notes here. Play the right hand fingerings exactly as printed here. They work very well. P-I-M-A, P-M-I-M, P-I, P-I. I remember when I first learned this piece, that measure there, I just had to do it over and over and over very slowly at first. And the rest of the piece is just a restatement of the beginning. Until we get to measures 15 and 16, it starts off like measure 7. But instead of stepping down, it's does something a little different. The last little pattern of notes is different also. So the first one starts off like 7, then it goes straight to this G sharp. Then we get an A in here, the G on the 2nd string, and it ends with a soft little D minor triad. At tempo, it only takes, 20-25 seconds to play through the whole piece. And so this is one that I practice every day. It's part of my warm-up routine, and I run through it. And I kind of loop through the beginning 3 or 4 times, and then I play it through to the end. And that maybe takes 2 minutes. But great stuff in this short study by Francisco Tarrega, as presented in Pumping Nylon with notes and fingerings by Scott Tennant. Highly recommended. Until next time, I've been James Caldwell. I appreciate you watching this video and checking out my channel. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more guitar-related videos. Thanks.